So I got into an argument the other day with this guy on YouTube who seemed to be really offended by my claim that changing skull shape causes male pattern baldness. He just really wanted to believe that his problem was genetic and hormonal and he had no control over it, I guess. I don't know. But we were going back and forth, and finally he said, like, you were mistaken. The only reason that you think that bald heads are rounder is because there's no hair there anymore. If there were hair, then it wouldn't look so round. Well, I don't think I'm mistaken. Tell me if I am, but based on this comparison, amongst other comparisons, but this is just one example, this skull shape, the kid with a ridiculous hairline where it's like kind of coming down his forehead, this skull shape appears a lot different than this skull shape. In particular, I see a giant bulge here, and I don't see that giant bulge, anything like that here. Furthermore, this kid's head seems a lot more angular. Like this is a flat forehead, and then at the hairline, it turns sharply, and he's got a flat, gradual curve to the top of his head. There is curve, right? There has to be curve, but this is much more angular, like a sharp change in direction, and minimal, very gradual curvature. Or not gradual, but like minimal curvature, like a very large radius of curvature. Whereas this guy doesn't have these sharp angles that separate the parts of his head. Like this giant bulge is making it so that it's just like this gradual rounding all around his head. Like this is not a sharp change in direction. The side of the head goes up, not a sharp change in direction there. That kid's more like that. Whereas this guy goes up, and then it's like very gradual curve up to this giant bulge. Same thing with the forehead. There's not a sharp change in direction at the hairline. It's a gradual curve up to this giant bulge. Right? Sharp change in direction, no bulge. So, that's what I see. But let me know if I'm wrong. It just seems like there's another comparison, right? This guy has got an angular head. This guy doesn't seem like it's angular. Right? Hair, no hair. Right? Dome head with absolutely no borders. Like there's no border that separates the side of his head from the top of his head. Where does the side of his head end and the top of his head begin? I can't tell. Whereas this guy, yeah, the side of his head ends here, and then there's a sharp change in direction to the top of his head. Up, sharp change in direction. Up, sharp change in direction. Forehead, sharp change in direction. This guy's just a giant dome planetarium where there's no sharp change in direction anywhere. And I think, based on these comparisons, seems to me like hair likes sharp changes in direction. It likes an angular skull on which to grow. It doesn't like total round dome, a total round dome surface to grow on. Like for some reason, doesn't want to grow on that. And just, so here's a conehead guy, and like, just, have you ever seen a kid with this head shape? That's why I think skull shape changes. Like the guy said, oh, well, skull shape doesn't change. My skull's not changing shape. Like, that's not what causes male pattern baldness. But like, you will never see a kid with this kind of skull shape. And that's why I think the skull's got to change shape. You look at every 9-year-old. There's no 9-year-old walking around with a giant cone head. But there are adult men with giant cone heads. There are adult men with giant bulges on the front of their head and the forelock region with the round, like very round foreheads and a bulge, giant bulge in the front of their head somewhere. You do not see a 10-year-old boy with this giant bulge on his head. All 10-year-old boys look like this. I think this kid's more like 6 or 7. Maybe he's 8. I don't know, somewhere in that range. Like, but they don't have the giant bulge. They don't have cone heads. They don't have bulges on the front of their head. They don't have a rhino horn growing right there. It's all angular. Or at least it's much more angular than when there's, like this guy, he didn't have this giant, he could not have had this when he was a boy, when he had hair. There's no way. It had to happen after puberty. There's no way this Indian dude had this giant bulge on his head when he was a boy. It had to happen after puberty. Every boy prepubescent looks much more like this. It doesn't look exactly like this, but it's much more like this with angular contours to his head. Flat forehead, flattish forehead, and then there's a sharp change in direction at the hairline where the hair grows. Sharp change in direction here at the side of the head to the top of the head. There are sharper changes in direction. Once those sharp change in directions go, then there's no more hair. And the other claim that I made that he didn't like was that toddlers can have receding hairline patterns. And he's like, do you ever see a toddler with a receding hairline pattern with a Norwood 3, like Nicolas Cage type hair growth pattern? Like, yeah, I have, because my daughter has one. This is my daughter. This is her at 1.5 years. And she has had a receding hairline growth pattern since she was, I don't know, maybe like 5-6 months old. Before that, she was like, had like the full, like just sides of the head with hair and then totally bald on top, like full on advanced male pattern baldness. Now she's got a receding hairline growth pattern. It's not a receding hairline because it's growing in, but yeah, I have seen, there are many toddlers who have this growth pattern. She's not the only one. And she's a girl. Kind of weird that a baby girl, a 1.5-year-old girl, can have the same hair growth pattern as an adult man. You see, like, it's pretty similar to this guy, and they have very similar shaped heads. Look how round her forehead is. Very round forehead. This guy has a very round forehead. Big, round forehead. Big, round forehead. Big, round foreheads are not good for hair growth. And you see, like, these babies, they all have very similar skull shape features to grown men with male pattern baldness. Right? Bulging forehead. That's another one. Not good for hair growth. Bulging forehead. Not good for hair growth. See, he's got flat back here and he's got some hair. She's flatter back here. She's got some hair. But in the front, there's a giant bulge here. A giant bulge here. That erodes the sharp contours. There's no sharp change in direction from the forehead to the top of the head. There's no sharp change in direction from the forehead to the top of the head. So she's struggling to grow hair here. Struggling to grow hair. Now, these toddlers, they grow out of it, right? There's no kid walking around with like a 5-6-year-old kid. There's no 5 or 6-year-old kid walking around with, boy or girl, with hair like this. They all have hair because the skull changes shape. The forehead gets a lot flatter. For adult men, it's getting bulgier. That's why they lose hair. These kids are going the other direction. They're getting flatter. Men are getting bulgier. Another like exact same hair growth pattern and exact same skull shape. It's all skull shape. No matter what age you are, no matter what sex you are, if your skull shape looks like this, you will have this hair growth pattern. It doesn't matter what your hormones are. All matters what your skull shape is. This shape is getting more bulgy, rounded in the front, more protruding, and like you see this tapering effect in the front of the hairline. This forehead will flatten out and this skull shape will change and she'll grow hair. This one's getting flatter. This one's getting rounder and more tapering and more bulging and severely curved in the forehead. And so he's going to keep losing hair. And that's how it goes. She's even got like a little bit of a crown loss there. Same skull shape. Doesn't matter. It's not about your hormones. It's not about your genetics. It's all about your skull shape and the changing thereof. All right, and the guys claim like, okay, there are no toddlers with male. Like there are tons of babies with just straight on advanced male pattern baldness. Right, this is like an 80-year-old guy, right? And it's all skull shape. The giant babies come out with cone heads, and it's hard to grow hair on a cone head. It's hard to grow, and then they get really round like right away because their brains are developing. Hair does not like a round, bulging head or a cone head on which to grow. And that can happen with babies. And for some reason, it happens with adult men. For babies, it's definitely like accommodating brain growth and also getting out of the vaginal canal. There's a lot going on with the head. It's got to get out and then it's got to round out. Stuff's going on. With men, it's a different story. But yeah, this guy's claim, like, have you ever seen a baby with male pattern baldness? Yeah, there are tons of babies with male pattern baldness. And the common feature is this round, just like with adult men, is a round head, a severely round head with a bulging forehead or a bulging top of the head. Something to that effect. The rounding is a problem because you don't have sharp changes in direction. that separate the forehead from the top of the head. That's what the body needs to grow hair. You need a sharp change in direction. Right. Okay, this is the Nicolas Cage. There's no baby with a Nicolas Cage Norworthy. Yeah, this is a Nicolas Cage Norworthy. Nicolas Cage doesn't even have a Norworthy. He's totally bald. He's just had like hair transplants or whatever. Anyway, this is male pattern baldness right here, and it's because this bulging forehead. There's no distinguishing border that separates the forehead from the top of the head, so he's struggling to grow hair. Again, another round, bulging forehead area that is obscuring the contour that separates the forehead from the top of the head. Hair does not like this. Advanced male pattern baldness. What's he got? He's got a round, bulging head. Babies can have male pattern baldness. Once this forehead flattens out and there's a border, there's a sharp change in direction at the hairline, then the hair will start to grow. This baby, I think it's a baby girl, looks like a female to me. Like, there's no way this girl had this sort of hair growth pattern as a kid, right? Because the forehead flattened out. Round, bulging forehead, and kind of a cone head here. Round, bulging forehead. Like, this is just like a 60-year-old guy. This is like Alfred Hitchcock, right? There's no distinguishing sharp border that separates the forehead from the top head. Round, bulging head, receding hairline. Right, round, bulging head, no hair growth. Kind of a bulge there, kind of a cone head bulge. Round, bulging forehead, has poor temple growth. Round, bulging forehead, like very round top of the head, round front of the head, as a 40-year-old guy, hair growth pattern. Round, bulging head, very round head. This is not as severe, but you see, it's not a flat forehead yet, and so he's struggling to grow hair. Kid's probably like 2.5. Round, bulging forehead, receding hairline, round, bulging forehead, round head, dome-like round head, struggling to grow hair. This is a weirdly shaped head. Like, there's a very gradual curve from where the forehead stops to where the top of the head begins. This gradual curve this area needs to flatten out for this kid to grow hair. This kid, bulging forehead, no hair growth. Right, it's just every human with a bulging head, bulging round head, where there's no distinguishing border between the forehead and the top of the head, is going to struggle to grow hair. And then you see, not all babies have this. The babies who have hair all have flat foreheads. Flat, broad, short forehead. Short helps, but it doesn't have to be short. But as long as it's a flat forehead, you have ridiculous hair. The humans with the most ridiculous hair have the flattest foreheads. It is obvious, to me at least. If you can find if you want to prove me wrong and prove this other guy right, that my claim is false, find me a kid or anyone with a flat forehead, a perfectly fat forehead that curves sharply to the top of the head, that has male pattern baldness. I don't think you'll find it, but that would prove me wrong. Flat forehead, good hair growth, right? Newborn. It's ridiculous hair for a newborn. Like, she's even growing hair on her forehead. Flat forehead. Flat foreheads grow hair. Flat, broad forehead. It's got a little bulge here, but it's broad all the way across. Broad, flat forehead. This is like girls like a couple months old. Like, ridiculous hair. Lion's mane hair. Flat forehead. Find me a human with a flat forehead and with male pattern baldness, and I will admit that I'm wrong. I just never seen newborn, flat forehead, ridiculous hair growth. This is like a teenager hair, but it's flat forehead, sharp changes in direction all the way around. That grows hair. This baby's doesn't have great hair, but it's a flatter, broader forehead than other babies. So the hairline is intact. It's thin, but it's still intact. And this is flat. Look at this flat forehead, great hair growth. Newborn, flat forehead, and then forehead stays flat. That's when you have babies who have great hair. They all have flat forehead, and adults with great hair. They all have flat foreheads. If you have a flat forehead, then the flatter the forehead is, the more the head shape has to change. The more sharp the change in direction will be from the forehead to the top of the head, and then the better the hair grows. Hair likes a sharp change in direction. It needs that distinguishing border. It needs to know where your forehead stops and where the top of your head begins, because that's where it's going to grow hair. Flat forehead, great hair. Flat, broad across forehead, great hair. Hairlines all the way across. Short helps, but it doesn't have to be short. And there could be a little bit of a bulge there, but as long as there's a distinguishing border that separates. There's a sharp change in direction at the forehead to the top of the head. And this kid's got a flat top of his head. So even there's a little bulge there, it's still a sharp change in direction. The top of the head gets parallel to the ground really quickly. That's what hair likes. That's what it looks like was going on to me. And then, like I said, none of these, when these babies become kids, they will all have flat foreheads. Right? And you see it in kids. All kids all have flat foreheads, and they all have great hair. Flat forehead, flat forehead, flat forehead, flat. Look how flat that forehead is. Right? All kids, like, they don't have these bulging foreheads like babies and adult men. So what else am I to conclude other than the skull shape has to change over time? It changes from bulging and round in infancy to flat and well contoured in childhood. And then for some men, it starts to bulge and round out again. Right? There are no kids that have a skull shape like this. All of them have sharp, or at least not as sharp as this kid. This kid's a ridiculous example, but this is how your head looks in childhood. Your head looked a lot more like this in childhood, and now it looks a lot more like this, and that's why you can't grow hair. And since there are no kids who have hair like or head shapes like this, then it must be that your head changes shape from childhood into adulthood, and then your hair growth pattern adjusts because of that. As a result, head shape changes, hair growth pattern shifts. That's because it's male pattern baldness. It has to be. There are no kids who have this skull shape. That's my case. If you want some more information on what we can actually do about this, how you can address your changing skull shape, and why might that occur? Why would men have a changing skull shape? I've got a lot of theories, and they're all on my website. All the information's there. You don't have to. I'm not charging for any information. You don't have to buy anything to get like my real information. Like, it's all on my website. Right? All my theories. hairlossalchemy.com. Check it out. There you go.